Today, we're diving into a crisis that's hitting millions of people across India right where it hurts, in their kitchens and in their businesses. What happens when the gas runs out? And look, this isn't just some thought experiment. For a lot of people, this is happening right now. It's causing a ton of confusion, a bit of panic, and honestly, it's showing us what happens when a massive system gets pushed right to the very edge. Okay, so here's where things get weird. At the very center of this whole thing is a huge contradiction. You've got the official story, right? The government is saying, hey, everything's fine, supplies adequate, it's uninterrupted. But then you look at what's actually happening on the streets, and you see these massive lines, websites for booking gas are crashing, and there's a black market popping up. So what on earth is really going on here? So to get to the bottom of this mystery, here's what we're going to do. First, we'll look at what happens when gas runs out. Then we'll trace the problem to a global choke point. We'll ask, who gets gas first? Then we'll follow the domino effect, and finally, we'll see what this means for the whole system. All right, first up, what happens when gas runs out? Let's dig into this disconnect between the official reports and what people are actually experiencing. And let me tell you, the impact it's huge, and it's very, very real. We're talking about online booking systems just completely crashing under the load. In a city like Patna, you have workers who are forced to go back to using firewood just to cook a meal. Think about that. In Bengaluru, hotels are seeing a 30% drop in business. And get this, even the iconic Pani Puri stalls in Bhopal are starting to vanish. This isn't just some minor hassle, it's a massive disruption to everyday life. And yet, while all of this is going on, here's the official word from the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. They're reassuring everyone that supplies are fine and telling people to, quote, avoid panic bookings. So how? How can both of these things be true at the same time? Well, believe it or not, the answer is thousands of miles away. Okay, section 2, the global choke point. You see, the real root of this problem isn't actually in India. No, it's a conflict happening thousands of miles away. And that conflict has created this critical bottleneck, a choke point, that's sending shockwaves right into kitchens and businesses all over the country. So here's the first big number you need to know, 60%. A full 60% of India's LPG, that's the cooking gas we're talking about, is imported. When you rely that much on other countries, well, you're building a pretty big vulnerability right into your supply chain. Okay, but if that 60% number made you pause, this next one is the real jaw-dropper. 90%. Of all that imported gas, a staggering 90% of it has to travel through one tiny, narrow strip of water, the Strait of Hormuz. So when a conflict flares up there, boom, it's not just a regional issue anymore. It becomes a direct threat to the energy lifeline of more than 1 billion people. All right, so this brings us to the big reveal. This is how we solve that mystery from the beginning. Knowing that this massive supply shock could be coming, the government put a special plan into action, a priority system. And honestly, this plan is the key to understanding this entire situation. So how does it work? Well, think of it like a triage system in an emergency room. 4 levels of priority. Step 1, top of the list, absolute highest priority, households. You and me, the government's #1 goal is to make sure people can cook at home. Step 2, you've got essential services, hospitals, schools, hostels. Makes sense. Step 3, government institutions. And then all the way down at the bottom, step 4, the lowest priority, are the commercial users. We're talking hotels, restaurants, factories, all of them. And that's it. That's the answer to the whole puzzle. You see, the government isn't technically lying when they say household supply is uninterrupted. Why? Because they're actively protecting it. They're redirecting the gas. But, and this is the huge but, because that gas is being diverted away from businesses, the commercial sector is getting hit with a massive shortage. And that's what triggers everything we see on the street. The long lines, the closed shops, the panic. Both stories are true. They're just different sides of the same coin. Okay, so households are mostly shielded from the worst of it. But this commercial crunch, it kicks off a massive domino effect throughout the economy. Let's take a look at the real-world price of this. It's Econ 101, right? When the official supply gets cut, a black market is pretty much inevitable. And the prices? Just look at this. In Hyderabad, the official price for a commercial gas cylinder is about 1,800 rupees. On the black market, business owners are paying anywhere from 4,000 to a whopping 7,000 rupees. I mean, for a small restaurant or hotel, it's completely unsustainable. And this goes way beyond just the money. This is about pure survival for these businesses. The president of the Bengaluru Hotels Association said that major hotels, we're talking big establishments, are literally going back to using firewood just to keep their kitchens running. That's how desperate things have gotten for them. And these ripple effects, these little dominoes, are falling all over the country. Bhopal? 40% of the Pani Puri stalls, gone. Vijayawada? Hotels have no choice but to jack up their menu prices. Madhya Pradesh? Factory canteens are cutting back on their menus. And in Indore, small eateries are being forced to go back to using old, polluting coal ovens just to stay afloat. It's happening everywhere. So what this whole crisis has really done is put a giant spotlight on the weak spots, the pressure points in India's entire energy system. So let's zoom out for a minute and look at what's being done about it and what this all means for the bigger picture. Okay, so the government is tackling this from 3 different angles. In the short term, it's all about crisis management. They've ramped up domestic production by 36% and carried out something like 12,000 raids to stop people from hoarding. Then, for the medium term, they're really pushing for people to switch to piped natural gas, or PNG, offering incentives to do it. And then the long-term play? That's all about making the whole system stronger, improving infrastructure, and crucially, finding new places to import gas from, so they're not so reliant on one single route.
And that brings us right back to where we started. What happens when the gas runs out? Well, we've seen it. This whole chain of events, from a conflict on the other side of the world all the way down to a local food stall, it's been a massive stress test for the entire system. It really shows you just how fast a problem somewhere else can become a problem in your own neighborhood. And it leaves us with a really big question, doesn't it? In a world where global supply chains are this fragile, is being this dependent on imports the biggest risk of all?